Hello there everyone and welcome back to another Muunilinst mock update video. We are getting very close to the end of the series right now. I'm predicting 2 more episodes with this one. So this episode, another episode, and then the finale. And in this episode I'm going to be working on the last portion of the mock that's left undone, which is this large front section by the cannon in front of the tower. There's a bunch of just plain base plate left that I need to fill in, and I'll be filling that in with a bunch of rubble, debris, a small structure, and of course all the road details. So everything will be covered in this episode, and by the end I will only have the tower left to complete, and I will save that for the penultimate episode right before the finale. So a lot of exciting stuff, and without any further ado, let's get started.
Alright, so the first thing that I worked on here was this little corner. You can see I've got a few things going here. I've started to place down some of the tiles for light gray and dark gray, but here's just one of the small structures I was working on for this kind of debris field. And the main thing to remember for this part is there's a particular moment from the show where you get a wide shot of the tower and you just see all this Republic artillery hitting short and around the tower itself. So I kind of want to replicate that, and also it's a little bit of a trick to know that if you're on these large scale mocks, if you're running out of parts, maybe try to do some destroyed elements, because I don't have enough parts to make any more large scale buildings for Muunilinst, plus the fact that the tower itself, I don't want to make any large buildings next beside the tower, because I think that'll detract from the tower itself in terms of the scale. So that's some of the reasons why I'm doing this kind of battle damage part. But you can see down here what I've got. Nothing too complicated, just some masonry 1x1s, and I got a headlight brick in there and some studs, just kind of random pieces all over the place to make it look like kind of a small debris field. So that's kind of what I got so far on this side. And here's kind of what I've got so far for the start of this episode. You can see I've done more work on the road, just filling in these small areas. Lots of gaps left because I need to order some more plates for those, but I really want to get that kind of close quarters urban combat feel with the fighting in between these piles of rubble. And I kind of think it'd be cool if this whole area, which will extend this way, is kind of where Fordo and his guys are at, kind of fighting, trying to make their way to the cannon or to the tower. I just think this area will be really cool because it's kind of going to be up in the front near the tower. I think it'd be cool if we had some of the more intense fighting up here with Fordo and some of the cool action poses kind of up in the front. But here's another small structure that I was working on. Again, really not too much complicated things going on here, just making it look like lots of debris and rubble and making it kind of small enough so that it looks like it's rubble, but also enough room for clone troopers and droids to take cover behind. So you can see these are more smaller structures. I think over there I'll make some more larger destroyed elements, so it looks like more buildings instead of just kind of rubble and stuff like that. Another thing I wanted to add in was, since I have these kind of 2 holes, which you saw me work on last episode with kind of these blown out portions of the tower, I wanted to add some debris down here on the bottom. So I worked on some kind of pieces of dark bluish gray debris field going on here. So you can see this is kind of like a pillar or a column that's kind of been snapped in half, or a piece of a wall that's fallen off the building from up there. And of course there'll be some room in there for some clones or droids to kind of take cover behind. Same with this part over here. Another thing that I think I'm going to do that might be something I do at the convention, since this is going to be a mock that's transported, so I can't really do that here before I head out. But what I want to do is just take a bunch of random pieces, say some of these 1x1 studs, and maybe some different 1x1 plates, and kind of just spread them out all throughout this area in different piles to really make it look like the building and parts of these have just crumbled and fallen to the ground. So a bunch of loose studs and things like that. I think that'll add a lot to this area down here, but that'll be something I probably add at the convention, because those will just be loose and they won't be attached to the ground. So I'm going to work a little bit more on this section and kind of just make my way over here and update you guys along the way. Probably nothing super exciting or large scale, but this is all necessary to kind of complete the rest of the mock, because there's just a lot of open space left. So really getting a lot of this stuff finished up is exciting, and I think it's going to be some really cool scenes for some action between the clones and the droids. Alright guys, so I worked a lot on this front area. There wasn't too much done the last time I update you guys, but I thought I'd show you what I have worked on. I've got this whole area right there, and then for the rest of the episode I need to work on this corner, which I do have an idea to build more of a structure that's destroyed with some walls instead of kind of these piles of rubble. So that's the plan for over here. But here's what I've got for this section in this other corner next to the cannon. Down over here you saw this last time. This was just the droids position that I got so far. I need to order more 1x1
light bluish gray plates to cover up some of those areas. You'll notice throughout this portion there's some parts that are missing because I'll need to order those, but we go down through this area. This is kind of where I made all my real progress. Down over here, built up all the road work all around this little entrenchment placement, and we've got some piles of rubble here and got some clone troopers set up. Nothing too crazy. We've got one position up here, and then as we go through over to here, this is kind of the big amount of progress that I made over in this direction with these other two clone troopers. I'm actually going to move this ARC trooper for the moment, but here we are. This is where a lot of the progress was made. Just some different piles of rubble, using different pieces and trying to incorporate both sand green and light bluish gray, just because I want to match the same pattern as all the buildings throughout the rest of the build. And then I kind of made 4 separate piles of rubble there to kind of make one little area inside there for clones to take cover in and kind of fight out of. So that's kind of what I've got for this section. Nothing too crazy, just some small pieces of rubble, trying to make it somewhat consistent throughout this side of the build here using sand green and light gray, and then of course the piles of columns and debris that fell from the tower right there and hit the ground. And again, I want to try to make some more details of like loose studs and everything, but that'll be at the convention. And then this is the kind of newer area that I worked on right here. So it doesn't really seem like much, but when we take a step back, the cool thing is just more of the MOC is getting complete. So now this whole section is starting to look more done and complete, especially with the tower in the background. So small things really making the MOC come together. So now that this section is done, it's time to move on to that corner over there, and I'll be extending the road out through this way and completing that building. So hopefully I'll have kind of this whole side of the build complete, so then we can focus on the tower itself and all the small miscellaneous things for the finale. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that left side there corner. And yeah, that made sense. Left side there corner, whatever. This has been a long couple days of building, so I'm getting a little tired, but it's all fun. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to build. All right, so here is what I've come up with. This was a little tricky because I am at my bare minimum for building pieces here. I'm surprised I was able to build even this much. That's how much I've ran out of parts. I've just been using them throughout the whole build on all of these different towers and buildings. So it's a very small, scale building right here because I cannot use any more pieces. I can't make this any larger, which is really unfortunate. But here's what I've come up with, and I think it works for now. Essentially, the idea was to make a kind of building that's similar to, say, that one in the back, where instead of it's not as wide as some of these other buildings, it's a little skinnier, almost more tower-like, or just kind of one rectangle up. And it's been blown apart and kind of destroyed. So I've got part of the wall left standing up here. You can see I've got a window in there, and then kind of this crest right here where part of the other building has been blown off, or the rest of the building it's kind of been blown off. And then I've got some parts down here I'll show you where it's kind of debris is spilling out of the sides. And then one thing I'm planning on doing to close out this video is finish this portion up here, maybe add a little bit more debris if I have enough to add like a fallen down column or something, and then kind of finish up this down area over here and get that all filled in. So then by the end of this episode, I'll have all of this front section completed and looking good. So here's what I've got for the building. The biggest issue I was running into was, again, size. So it is quite small, but again, I can't really do much about that right now. Here's on the side over here. I've got some kind of debris falling out of the building, and I've got a little bit of depth added in there, so it looks like it's been kind of blown apart by some artillery. And then here's some plates and tiles and different bricks to make it look like part of this side has been blown out, and it's kind of barely hanging right there, so technically a clone could peek out from under there, or a droid to kind of shoot and blast return fire at other buildings. But I wanted to kind of make this destroyed element kind of like structural, almost like wooden pallets or bars, but it's kind of stone instead due to the buildings of Muunilinst. And then there's a little pile of debris. I'm out of 1x1, so I have to use these studs. Again, we're really stretching our resources here by the end of the MOC, but that usually happens on every single large-scale build, so nothing new there, always presenting a fun challenge. But here is part of the wall that I have, kind of making it look like it's blown out. I've got a window right there, and then some slopes up here to make it look like part of the kind of roof or rest of the building was kind of blown off, and that's all that's left standing. The window is a little tall, if you're noticing. That's because when I was building, I was realizing, like, these buildings are made for Munes, and Munes are way taller than clones or droids, so these windows probably should be higher. I didn't really consider that, for a lot of the build, for like a lot of the windows and stuff. So for this one, I made it a little bit taller, so it's made for like Immune, the native species, to Muunilinst instead of clone troopers. Over on this side, I've added in some 1x1 bricks and kind of stacked them offset from each other, kind of one down all the way to the bottom of the structure, kind of make it look like a blown out portion using 1x1s throughout. I mean, I've used it throughout all of Muunilinst here, 1x1 plates and 1x1 bricks, kind of staggering them, creating them offset, making it look like kind of a destroyed pattern, so it gradually goes down as if, you know, part of this structure kind of got blown out and kind of slid down and cracked along there. So that's what I've been using for most of Muunilinst throughout most of the build in the previous sections, like the battlefield and the other buildings. And then, of course, Fordo's up here in the front. But another section down here that's kind of been blown out and destroyed. So technically, this would have been a part that was completely standing, like this front side over here. But part of it got blown out and starting to kind of spill out there. And we've got the different layers. So plates and stuff going up, and then some masonry and even more masonry and plates in the back over there, if you can kind of see all the way back there, just to give it some depth, because I didn't have it at first and it was kind of just a square and it didn't look very interesting. Again, kind of just not that cool and very flat, so I decided to add some more depth to it by adding this kind of spill section, as I call it, where a lot of the debris is spilling out of the side of the building. And then this is the front. This is pretty much same design that I've used for every building, just to keep it pretty consistent, where I'm using masonry and 1x1 plates, 1x2 plates, all sorts of things like that. So here is the newest structure. I don't think we can call it a building. I don't think it's large enough to be a building. It's kind of just a destroyed piece of cover that the clones are using for this part to kind of come out here and fight through here. Just a small structure that the clones are using for kind of cover and firing position to kind of go over here and start to scale the tower itself and the cannon. So not the best building out of all the other ones, but again, I'm out of pieces, so we're kind of getting to that point in the MOC. I'm going to make one last order to finish everything, and I'll try to order some more plates so I can maybe add some more battle damage and a little more detail to parts like this and other parts throughout here, just to make it a little bit more detailed and interesting. But this is kind of what we got going so far. Last thing I'm going to do is fill in some of this empty space with more of the road, and then hopefully I'll have this whole front section completed. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that up, and then I'll update you guys once I get that completed. Alright guys, so I worked and got all of the rest of the road done on this part of the MOC, besides some stuff in the way back corner. But now from that building all the way down over here to this corner, all of the road has been put in. I got some of my extra pieces that I was waiting for in the mail and was able to finish a lot of this section. So you can see a lot of this was left undone, but now it has all been filled in, and it's looking a lot better now that there's no more blank spaces in here. It just makes the MOC feel so much more complete now that everything is filled in. No more blank spots really on this part besides some stuff in the corner. But now you can see the entrance to that house over there comes all the way down, and the whole road is figured out and built. And then we get right up here to the front of the build. So that's going to do it for this episode. This was a lot of stuff done before we started this episode. All of this from kind of over that building all the way over here, none of it was really done yet. And I made all this stuff in this episode, which I think is good progress, although it might not seem like a whole lot. But again, it's nothing large like the cannon that I start, or the cannon in the tower. But it's a lot of this small stuff that brings the MOC together. So now we have almost the full MOC with the whole road paved out and built and ready to go. So I think that looks pretty good. And again, I might be making some more changes to that if I can find the pieces to do so. But for now, I think it works pretty well. Here's a different angle of the progress that I made on this episode. If you guys have been around for a while, you've heard me talk about kind of minifig perspective on MOCs and the different ways you can look at your MOC kind of eye level if you get down and look at it, especially when you do or use a lot of studs and kind of open studs. Like I like to do with my terrain and debris, you really get a different angle to look at things, and it really gives a lot more texture to the build, especially when you look down at minifig perspective. So I think some of these angles are really cool to look at, kind of highlighting some of the debris and battle damage that's been done to this part of the MOC. Again, up here, I think for the final build, I will have Fordo and the boys up here trying to take out the cannon and get up to the top of the tower. So that should be pretty exciting, but here's just an alternate look. And with that, I'm going to close out this episode. I'm expecting one more episode where I'm going to be finishing up the tower, and then that'll be it for Muunilinst, and we'll have a finale. So 2 episodes of Muunilinst left, so 1 normal episode and then 1 finale episode.
getting so very close to Brickworld and to the end of this MOC. So very exciting stuff. It's emotional, but I don't really have too much time to think about it because I'm just trying to get this thing finished and make it presentable before Brickworld Chicago. So again, next episode, I'm going to be hopefully finishing up and working on the tower plus the command center that goes on top of what I've built so far. So then I'll be able to have the tower pretty much complete. And after that, we'll be able to move on to the finale. So that's it for this episode. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Again, a lot of small stuff kind of contributing to this side of the MOC to make it more complete and finished up. So hopefully you guys did enjoy. And with that, let's go ahead and move on to the outro.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you did enjoy. Might not be as exciting of an update compared to the recent episodes with the cannon and the tower, but this is all necessary stuff to make the MOC more complete, and I did cover a pretty large area, and it's very satisfying to have most of the MOC covered with details on pretty much every area of the MOC now, and I think the little piles of debris is going to be really fun to set figures up in. I've always been a big fan of kind of that close quarters urban combat, like in the rubble, Stalingrad type feel for MOCs, and especially mixing that World War II feel with something like Clones vs. Droids in Star Wars. I think it's just really exciting stuff in terms of setting up figures and battlefields and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys did enjoy the progress I made on this episode. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I think I mentioned in a couple segments as well, this episode and one more episode before the finale. So the next episode we'll be focusing on completing the command center that goes on top of the tower, and then hopefully finishing up the rest of the tower, the front section of the tower and the back. Hopefully I get all that completed next episode, which will lead us into the finale, which will be kind of touching up a few things here and there and talking a little bit about figures and some more exciting stuff like that. So really close to the end here for Muunilinst. Next video is going to be very exciting because I'm going to be working on the command center, and I've already actually started to work on it, and it looks really good so far, and the tower is going to be massive. I think it's just going to be so epic, so make sure you stay tuned for that next episode, and that will lead us right into the finale, and then it's Brickworld time. So very exciting stuff. As always, leave your feedback in the comment section below. Hope you guys have a great day, and may the Force be with you always.